Yo, what's going on, world? I'm sitting next to the man. We here at All Hip Hop, One World Studios. One of the most talented dudes I know. Super versatile, multi-talented, faceted, all types of genres of music. We're here with Law. You might know him as Planet 12,
That's
Law,
right.
or whatever,
In the
whatever.
place
But
to
Law
be,
in the
man.
place. What's good
Yes.
with you, man?
Everything is good, man.
Yeah.
It's so good to finally
Yeah,
get up
finally
with
we
you,
get
man.
we've
Finally
known each
get
other
it.
for so
So
long.
long,
Yeah,
man.
for
And
so long.
it's an honor to be here, man.
Yeah,
It really
man, I'm
is.
glad to finally have you. And this all came about just a chance encounter on the street.
Yeah, it's
know?
funny, but that's what happens when you put two hood boys together. Like
Right.
the natural part of the
Yeah.
organic part of it is always a great thing. So
Absolutely,
and God
man.
made it happen. So
Absolutely.
I'm happy to be here, man.
Yes, sir. So for people, like, I want you to just tell me and tell the audience who you are. Like, I know you, but I see you doing so many different things, and it's hard to pin down exactly what you do, who you are. You know what I'm saying? I see you. Sometimes you rhyming, sometimes you dancing, sometimes playing bass. You know what I'm saying? So tell people.
I'm a hustler, baby. No,
Yeah.
for the most part, AKA the most talented kid in the music biz, a moniker given by one of my best friends because, singing, rapping, songwriting, producing, multi-instrumentalist, choreographer, dancer,
Yeah.
on all facets. So pretty much in the spectrum of things, coming from a somewhat famous family, my legendary grandfather, Sam Bluesman Taylor,
Right.
my cousin Cheryl Pepsi Riley, my mom Sandra Taylor, and a host of other people in my family, from the BT Express to Crown Heights Affair, the original OGs of Brooklyn,
Right.
Mandrill, Sky. I come out of that particular bed of musicians and singers, but of course, being a proud 80s baby, when hip-hop bit me in the middle of all that, I was already doing the church thing. So that just opened all kind of doors for me as I became a teenager, working with some of my favorite artists. Was signed to Henchman Entertainment for a long time,
Oh,
so that's
for
how
real? I didn't know that.
that's how me and Razcast is family, because
okay.
that's the whole. I was one of the last groups signed to that, but I was the only group besides a lot of those guys that was doing his own production, his own songwriting, had my group straight out of high school. So for most of my fans, they primarily know me for my work with the late great Amy Winehouse.
Yep.
And of course, I'm 18 years in as a member of the P-Funk clan, Parliament Funkadelic. My mentor, the man besides my grandfather that brought me into the business, Mr. George Clinton, a.k.a. Dr. Funkenstein himself. Worked with a lot of other notables, such as my good friend Lionel Richie, of course, Rusty Jooks on the hip-hop side of stuff, Bumpy Knuckles, a.k.a. Freddie Fox, Granddaddy IU, the list goes on and on. It's a lot of different things. But those are primarily what my fans know me for. So I'm on all sides of the fence, from funk rock to R&B to hip-hop. I work with Shaka Khan, Freddie Jackson, and a whole lot of other people.
Okay.
Man.
Talk about Amy Winehouse in particular, because that's it might have been my intro to you. I'm not sure, but that might be.
It would make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, because, again, I was already playing with P-Funk by the time I did the thing with Amy. But the thing was just that, and mind you, P-Funk, the core audience of P-Funk alone, as you know, is probably the greatest. That's why they call them the Black Grateful Dead, because that audience is one of the most diverse audiences. You have black, white, all kind of colors, children. Now, because now you are the kids funk, because George got his grandkids on stage. Shout out to Trezay and Third and all those guys, man. Like they're bringing in the next generation the same way I did when I joined P-Funk, because the last part of my generation I was able to do that. But you're right. When I started working with Amy, it was crazy, because of course the profile definitely got bigger. I mean, we did I did David Letterman with her. You see me in my white Kango, me and my boy Zalan, like we doing the steps and stuff like that. And before you knew it, Fergie and all those guys, they were doing it with us. I'm like, they know the routine already.
Right.
That's when I knew that it was going to be, because I knew when we did the show it was going to be monumental. But some years later, the most DMs I get in my inbox is pretty much, all her fans around the world just asking what it was like, and them talking about the performances on the 2007 MTV Movie Awards.
Yeah.
Amy was incredible to work with. I can't even, every time I tell the story, I get very emotional sometimes, because simply of, people don't understand. I always want the world to know that this girl knew her music.
Yeah.
She was not some flute that a record label just signed. She was about the history of it. I miss our conversations. We would have conversations in California when we get ready for the shows and things like that. And that's what I really want the world to know about Amy. You know, forget all the negative stuff has been said. And to be honest with you, I was offered a whole lot of money, but my Brooklyn integrity would not. You know, they wanted me to talk about all the other stuff that was going on, but I prefer to talk about the Amy that I got to know in between all the madness. Because when I joined her, the madness was just starting. You know,
Right.
Back to Black was the #1 album in the country, and then about a year later, we ended up winning the 4 or 5 Grammys. So. You know, so I mean, it was excellent working with her, and I miss her so much.
Yeah. She was incredible. I was a huge fan of Amy, and when she died, it was like a family member. It was like, you know, and you know how social media can be. They'll be like, man, you wasn't crying like that when such and such died.
Oh, that,
you know, and I was like, yo, come on, man, stop.
It's the emotional factor of it, and especially more so in my favor, because you gotta remember, I want to point this out real quick. Amy did for me what she didn't have to do for me. You know what I mean? She didn't owe me anything. This woman, because in addition to being her background singer and dancer, I also was her opening act for 2 shows at the Highline Ballroom. This is during the course of Back to Black. She fought her own record label to have me open up. Her and her manager Ray, they really fought for me, because you know how the rule was back that time. The only way you could have an opening act was if somebody was signed by Universal.
Okay.
And of course, you know, I'm independent. So, but she fought for me, because after she heard my album, courtesy of her boyfriend Blake, the guy you always saw in the pictures with, you know, he was a huge fan of my work. And at the time, I hadn't even put my first album out yet. It was a demo going around, and we had the MySpace thing happening, and things were starting to come into fruition with social media. And true to her word, man, Amy let me open up for her. And, you know, so I'm forever in debt to her. So that's why, for me, it's going to always be emotional when I talk about Amy, man, you know. So I miss her so much.
Now, where did well, you come from a musical family, but you know, in these streets, it gets dicey and people lose focus.
Absolutely.
Or, I mean, being so musical, it takes a certain discipline.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
My family.
Yeah.
My family, the Taylors and the Worrells. You know, my family was my Juilliard for music, if that makes any sense to you. Everybody had a section. My sister / cousin Neffy, she was into new wave, Devo, and reggae, because all she did was West Indian guys. So I had literally that palm of it. Of course, my mother, Sandra Taylor, the gospel stuff, because, you know, I'm from church. So, you know, and thing is that the gospel, my grandmother, Shirley Caesar, Timothy Wright, whose church was like 2 blocks down from where our church was. So I had the plethora of it. And of course, my grandfather, you know, him being the original member of Joy D and the Starlighters, the first interracial rock group before Sly and the Family Stone.
Okay.
Peppermint Twist. Right. So that's almost like, you know, I had the early rock and roll, and then because of his work with BT Express, I had the funk too. So then my legendary uncle Tony T. Funk Austin, who played with James Brown and Bobby Bird and Kool and the Gang for a couple of years. So that's the funk R&B heavy, and he was in the jazz fusion. So I got in the Weather Report, Mahavishnu Orchestra, you know, Billy Cobham and Miles Davis, and then of course my cousin Showbiz, who used to hang in the Bronx with his boys, with Kumo D and all these guys on Convent and all that. So of course, what comes next? The hip hop, and then my uncle Kevin's a straight b-boy. So these are all of my. Imagine being 8 years old. These are all of my worlds colliding at the same time. So even though I had the gospel, R&B, and the funk, you know, and everything else, it pretty much resonated when hip-hop came into the picture, because hip-hop had a special way of bringing all of that together. And because I have the greatest dilemma. I'm a real MC that happens to be a real singer that really plays music, that can produce, really songwrite, and I can really dance. I'm not somebody trying to do steps. You've seen the video. So it's almost like that was my world at 8 years old. So it all came together. So you add that with science fiction and Marvel, and my fascination with Carl Sagan and all things of that nature, like Star Trek and Star Wars. And that's how, at the P-Funk element in there, I saw the Mothership Connection album, and that changed me forever. And that's how you end up with Planet 12. So it does take a certain discipline. I was about it. At 5 years old, I was already singing Always and Forever by Heatwave. My uncle, remember that scene in the Jacksons movie where Joseph wake up the kids? He's like, look, my kids can do it better than you. That was my late Uncle Bobby. God bless in heaven. He would wake me up. He's like, and this be 2 o'clock in the morning. That's why I'm an insomniac now to this day, because he wake me up. Yo, Lawrence, come in here. Hit that note from Always and Forever. You know what I'm talking about, the bridge. And I had to hit that at 5 or 6 years old. So I was committed. Nobody in
Yeah.
our family is not forced. You either want to do music or you become an educator like my aunt did, or
Yeah.
pretty much you do sports like my older brother did, who ended up doing music because of his ties from Marcy, because him and Sauce Money and Jay used to roll together. My older brother Casino
Woo.
Chip. So that's
Man,
it's a history, man.
Yeah,
That's why I always tell
crazy.
people to tune to the IG page. I post some
Right.
certain things that they may not know, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm disciplined.
Now, George Clinton is an amazing man. I met him a couple times, and we've touched, base, casually, obviously. But when and we actually interviewed him once too, and I mean, I'm in awe of him. It's funny, he's very clear-headed too. Like sometimes you hear stories and you think, what are we gonna get?
Oh
But
man,
how is that?
George. To this day, I still pinch myself.
Yeah.
When I'm on stage with him, I'm like a little kid on stage.
Right.
And shout out to my boy Gabe Gonzalez from Enema Squad. He's the one that made it happen, because before I joined the official camp, I was part of his band, which is a P-Funk offshoot called Enemy Squad.
Okay.
And that was one of the better bands off the P-Funk branch. And Gabe saw the chance in me, so I started working with Gabe. And next thing you know, when Enema Squad went on hiatus, a good friend of mine by the name of Sarah Trager made sure that George heard my demo. This is before it became the Planet 12 Syndrome album. And George flipped and said, bring him out to Tallahassee. He gotta stay with me. So 18, 19 years later, to be an active member and a representative. And it's funny because I'm actually the only, besides the late, great Eddie Hazel, who's originally from Brooklyn, by the way of Plainfield. He's born in Brooklyn first.
Right.
But the interesting part is that out of the whole camp, I'm the only one actively from Brooklyn, Crown Heights. So that put me in a special space. And what that did was that it opened up a lot of doors for me in our city, because, I'm the first hip-hop artist to play the legendary Bitter End. Before that, the Bitter End is known for the Isley Brothers, Curtis Mayfield, Donny Hathaway, Bruce Springsteen. Right. I'm the first hip-hop based artist to play the Bitter End. And you know why? Because of my work with P-Funk, because the hybrid. George was always a hybrid. Even though he's a funk master, George incorporated everything. Funkadelic is the first black heavy metal band, without question. Notwithstanding Def and Fishbone and Bad Brains and all the guys that they influenced, but they were the first to get that type of notoriety. Because Def never got that notoriety, but Funkadelic did. And then Fishbone later, of course, then Lenny Kravitz, and of course, my number one idol, Prince, he took it to the next level. He took it to the level where it wouldn't get to with the Minneapolis sound by incorporating the heavy rock and roll part of it, because Jimi Hendrix never really finished his mission. So, so George is the ringleader in all that, because you gotta remember, that's the funk analogy. James Brown created the funk, Sly and Family Stone diversified the funk, but it was George who made funk religion. Wow, think about it.
That's crazy.
It's universal, because and then George, unlike the other two guys, George accepted hip hop, because like you said, he said, well, we was doing hip hop before y'all called it that, which is true. So at the end of the day, and James Brown too, but George has always been about the youth. That's what I love about him, because if you think about it, Parliament were the older guys and Funkadelic was the young backup band.
Got it.
So him accepting me, and then now y'all's grandkids up there, that it makes so much sense. And people, some people were like, oh, what's all this? Why is he trying to do? He said, and I said, George has always been like that. He's always been forward thinking. And so long story short, it's still, I'm proud to say on my resume, I work with the man. He's the man that gave me my first major industry check. I was making some money in the industry before, doing gigs with my grandfather. But he gave me my first check for ching ching for production work. Which is crazy when you think about it. And then after I got that, I got the official invitation to be a member of the camp all the way around. So I ended up joining 420 Funk Mob, which I'm still the lead singer of, and the same thing with Enemy Squad. We're still together. Like, I'm still part of those groups in addition to all the stuff that I do on my own with Planet 12. So, yeah, man, it never gets old for me. I love that man and will forever love that man to the day that I die. Anytime he call me anything like that, he need anything, him and his wife, like, I'm literally there. With no question.
Dope. All right, so let's talk a little bit about you now. We can name drop, not that we're name drop as a negative. Name drop's usually a negative thing, but you can legitimately name drop, and it's official, and that's kind of dope.
Well, that's the Brooklyn Scorpio in me, because you know how we doing that. And the funny thing about this is that, I never subscribe to that whole the name dropping phase, because at the end of the day, my thing is that if it's really legit, then you can name drop. See, name dropping is only bad when name drop, and then
Yeah.
it don't add up.
Right,
And I used to
right.
always tell people, like, you know, we used to go to the club back in the days. Everybody get like, give me a card. I work for Aftermath, and the next thing you know, you try to Google them, and your name don't even come up.
Right.
And if I run into Dre, anybody that works at Aftermath, and they don't even know who you are by your first name credentials, that's when name dropping is bad. But
Right,
if it's
right.
official, and I have the stories, it's all proof, it's all real. They see it on Facebook, they see it on Instagram, they see it when I speak about it, they see it as it's happening. And, you know, I'm not gonna lie, you know, Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali are my heroes, because if I wasn't doing music, I'd be boxing. So the thing is that for me, gotta remember, if Muhammad Ali can do it, what's wrong with an official Brooklyn dude that has credentials doing it?
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
don't talk about, Jay-Z said it best from where I'm from. Don't talk about it if you ain't lived it. And I lived it. So for me, I could talk about certain things. And I'll be the first person. If I don't know something about something, I'll be like, oh, really? Like, I'm very, because I'm a learner. I love to learn. As much as I know, as much as people consider me to be, they was like, oh, Law's a master musician. And I do take that with the pat on my back. I said, thank you very much. But you know what? Life is forever learning. Skills are forever learning. And the day you stop learning, to me, is the day that you die. So for me, I don't get caught up in the hype of that. Even though I do accept it, the Brooklyn part of me on stage be like, you know, I do what I do, and I'm like, yeah. But then after that, I'm just a regular kid from Crown Heights, St. Mark's Avenue, Brooklyn, living this dream. So, so the name drop is necessary, and sometimes you have to pull the card, because a lot of times in this industry, as Jay-Z said once again, dudes will try to play you. But as soon as you get a couple of hits or notoriety, or people like, oh shoot, he's with Lionel Richie. Next thing you know, they start hitting your inbox up, and people want to get friendly. All of it. It's the name of the game. So I'm used to it. I'm still dealing with that part of it, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
So.
Now let's talk about your music a little bit and where you are with it. So I know you've dropped a lot of projects.
Yes.
What would you say your main? What's your main form? Like, what's your main? I know it's hard for you. I know.
The $1 million question.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like what's my name? My
Like,
main
what do you-
genre?
Yeah.
I call it the Plan 12 sound. I had to name it that, even though it could be cliche, and it would be like, it's the sound, that's the sound of young America. You have to name it something, because think about when Motown first came out, what they call it, the sound of young America, because honestly, that's what the hell it was.
Right.
Berry Gordy had a vision, and it took over the world, even though it was this black man, but they appealed to everybody. And that's the stance I took. So Berry Gordy and all the Motown acts became a definite influence at a younger age.
Yeah.
But the expansion part of who I am is an attest to all of my heroes, because think about it, my top two being Prince and Stevie Wonder.
Right.
Who, funny thing, it had nothing to do with hip hop, but here's the interesting part of it, because all the other guys that would come after in hip hop, like the Roots, the Outkast, and a special shout out to Stessa Sonic, because
Oh wow.
you know those are my big brothers. You know, Wise, Daddy O, Bobby Simmons, those are my peeps, and that's the first hip hop band, because they showed the conglomeration of hey, because we have instruments on stage, we can go here, but we can go there. So I really don't like to categorize. I have a theory, you know, try to put me in a box and I'll break that shit. Like I really don't, because I do everything else. And then we were coming from the era where they were telling you, well, if you only do this kind of music, this is what will happen. If you do this kind of music, like they told people, don't realize that Elton John was the Ozzy Brothers keyboard player before they did their 70s hit. People don't even understand. It's like Rick James and Neil Young were in a band together before Rick became Mr. Super Freak and before Neil Young became Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. That's cool. You think about the mashup, because everybody look at Neil Young as the grunge rock and roll guy, but Neil Young is really R&B.
Yeah. Wow.
Rick James, R&B super freak, but he's really a rock and roller. If you look at the image and the stories,
absolutely.
we heard all the Charlie Murphy stories. I mean, you pretty much know he lived the life of a rock star. I said because that's what he's from, that era. It just so happened his career took off later than earlier.
Right.
So it's the same thing with me. Like I pretty much belong to that conglomerate where at any given moment, look at Stevie Wonder. 1 minute it's funk soul, next minute it's Village Ghetto Land, which is straight classical music. Yeah. I do what the hell I want, and that's really the freedom of being independent. So I really can. That's why I have to call it the Plan 12 sound. You know, 1 minute is country, because I love country music. 1 minute is R&B. Next minute is funk, and then of course, straight ripping lyrical ciphers. And as soon as I get into the mix of any of that, you know, I take my rhyme writing just as serious as I do my singing. So I turn into that guy. I turn into that. It's not no longer the singer guy anymore. Because back then that was the whole thing. It's like, oh, if this guy can sing, he can't do all that. But then I go on and spit some shit, you know, and I never lost a rap battle. So for me, it was like, it let them know right then and there. It's like, we got to really respect this guy because he does all this falsetto singing and all this dancing and stuff like that. You know, he's totally beyond masculine, and the dude can still rhyme. And he dances on stage. He does splits and jump off of pianos like Prince and things like that. And it's like, you give them a show. So that's the only real way to sum it up. It's the Planet 12 sound. It's a hybrid of everything, the same way how George did P-Funk. Even though it's known for funk, George can go anywhere he wants to. And that's exactly what I want to do for my generation and the generation coming up now.
Dope. Now, I'm gonna have to get your top 5 dead or alive.
MC-wise?
MC-wise,
Oh, that's
yeah.
easy. Oh, straight up the back. Number 1, Cool G Rap, without question.
Yo, I gotta shake your hand on that one, man.
Wanted Dead or Alive.
You know what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
come on. I don't even want to. I can.
I'm actually gonna interview G Rap real soon, man.
That's one of my good friends. I mean,
Oh,
I
for
had
real?
dinner with G Rap. This is a couple years ago. Shout out to my homegirl Bernadette G. She did an awesome hookup. Surprised me. I had a corporate gig that night. And it was so funny because she's like, come stop by the house. I got to talk something. I'm like, okay, stop by the house.
Yeah.
Who opens the door?
Wow.
G-Rap. I said, I've been waiting to meet G-Rap since I was like 13. So now here I am, my oldest state, and we had the 4-hour conversation over some Italian dinner.
Wow.
Why
hands
not?
down, probably, I would say hands down the most underrated rapper. And people,
Without
and
question.
now if you know, you know. But a lot of people don't know, so we gotta
watch you spit up blood when you get hit up, putting one in your head, making sure you don't get up. I mean, you don't. I'm a sucker for wordplay. You know, English was my favorite subject in school besides science. So the metaphors, the similes, the flow, and the fact that G-Rap had a lisp.
Right.
Got a lisp, and to be rhyming that fast and still have every line make sense.
Right.
So number 2, that leads me to number 2, without question, my big bro, Big Daddy Kane.
Of course. Yeah.
Because the evenness of both of those guys,
Yeah.
you gotta remember. Now the thing with Kane is that Kane also had the dichotomy of the lyrical wordplay, the subject matter of it all, and the diversity because he wasn't afraid to dance. And that was me because, you know, G-Rap doesn't dance.
Right.
But Kane does. So when I saw Kane, Scoob, and Scrap, we used to get into routines and stuff and still spit lyrical fire, they had to respect him. Because back then, if you was a dancer, you'd be like, oh, he probably don't got lyrics. But everybody knew Kane had the same lyrical dexterity, if nothing else. So when I first heard Set It Off, man, it was like,
They
like
literally, those two, and Rakim as well, literally like murdered, like just
that was
stylistically,
pretty much
They just pushed everybody out to the side, and it was a wrap.
I mean, think about it. He said, you just can't cope, and if you are what you eat, you feeding me dope. Like, that's just like, you can't even fathom that. And as a kid, I was just like, I'm pressing the rewind button like 5 times. And Kane said in that thing when he got on that VH1, he was like, I'm probably known for a lot of broken rewind buttons. That's facts because I'm sitting there with him and G-Rap all day like, oh my God, like it was mind-blowing. Like it was mind-blowing. I have every album I got. You know, we study albums. That was the era, even in that, to this day, we still do that like that. Number 3, of course, Farmers Boulevard. Y'all know. LL Cool J.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, lyrical wordplay. The girls liked him. The fellas wanted to be him. And then I don't understand what people be talking about. They be like, I said, y'all don't listen to albums. LL is a wordsmith. And not to mention him and Kane among one of the first ghostwriters in the game. So how could you not be, if he's not lyrical, then how come he's ghost wrote for Run DMC and a bunch of other people? And LL, the reason why I look up to him, because he had the most battle in hip-hops. And the thing about him is that he never started any of these battles, but he damn sure finished them. And that's always been me. Like everybody that started with me, like on the block or anything like that, when we were battling school and whatnot, they would call my name out, and I'm like, that's straight suicide lyrically. Like you really want to go up against me and rhyme? And half of the dudes that I battled against, they wasn't as smart as me. So I took the LL approach all the time, how to dismantle your opponent. And LL was very successful in every rap battle that he did. Plus had the balance with doing the joints for the girls, you know. And other guys hated it, but I loved it because it showed me that I could rap about I need love or, you know, lounging or making songs like that and then still come over here and make a song called I Shot You or Why You Think They Call It Dope off the Walking With a Panther album.
Right. All right.
Number 4, the God MC, without question. Rakim was just a whole nother, and the funny thing about it is just that, you know, with all due respect to my big bros, Public Enemy, shout out to Griff, Chuck, and Flav, Strong Island, in retrospect, Rakim is really the first, if I'm not mistaken, the first MC to put Long Island on the map. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure between him and NPMD, like those are the strong guys. But Rakim, I mean, I don't have to say it. the cerebral wordplay, the low tone, the monotone in his vocals. I mean, the fact that he could say that, you know.
Rappers were yelling.
I mean, come on, rappers were yelling, and he comes in. And then the thing is that even with his metaphors, it was different from the way Cool G Rap and Kane did metaphors. I mean, look what he said. After 12, I'm worse than a gremlin. Feed me hip hop, and I start trembling. I'm like, it was cerebral because his tone put you in that. You couldn't help but just sit there and just be like, yo, he's deep. And forget the fact that, you know, he's 5%. I mean, all this stuff that went into the knowledge of self and the gods and the earths. But at the end of the day, even with that, the lyrical wordplay and the whole street essence of who he was, it never lost the luster. And that's what made me pay attention. And speaking of George Clinton, he can recite. One thing I love about Dad, and I call him Dad very often, is that he can recite the whole rhyme to Follow the Leader.
That's crazy.
Off the top, like he said, because Rakim blew his mind. Right. See what I mean? So it's almost like a different thing. And Rakim was one of the first people to sample P-Funk as well. So number 4. Number 5, without question, Redman.
Okay.
Because to me,
we got like almost exact.
Because you gotta remember, and I'm a battle MC and I'm a lyrical writer. I can write all kind of topics, but I also know how to write when it comes to going for the juggler. Mm-hmm. And my thing has always been this: when you only got 4 minutes, better yet, not even 4 minutes. You only got probably about a minute to impress somebody when it comes to spitting venom, and that was always that's the Indian in me, as you see. Like that's the whole that's the whole warrior mindset, and that was me in the street too. So the whole thing was just that, I'm calm, I'm the nice. He's like, Lord's a nice guy, he's a cool in the street. I said, but somebody disrespect me, you know, I ain't gotta tell you, same mark. So at the end of the day, it was almost like I knew when to fight, I knew how to spit off, and the thing was just that Redman to me was the sum of his parts. Mm-hmm. There's parts of him that's G-Rap. There's parts of him that's Kane. A couple of parts is Rakim, but then
and
guess
Slick
what?
Rick too.
And Slick Rick storytelling with the Redman meets Reggie Noble. But then just the whole, he was still himself. He came with a whole thing.
Straight from Newark.
Yeah, the whole Brick City aspect. And then the fact that he was twisting the words. And then you see a lot of his influence in my 6th favorite MC, which is Eminem. You know, you said top 5, but but it bleeds into that because after that list, Eminem, Raz Cash, Chino XL, Grand Pooba, that rounds out my list. Like I have a lot of and Moni Love for speed and lyricism. So I have a lot of heroes, but those are my top 5 pretty much.
That's a dope list.
Yeah, man.
So let's talk about what you got coming up, album wise, or what's going on with the music in that regard.
Well, it's funny you ask. As you know, the funny thing about it is that for the last 4 or 5 years, my first 2 albums have been doing very well for me. The Planet 12 Syndrome and the Planet 12 Live Sessions Volume 1. That's been doing really well for me because, as you had Johnny Gill not too long ago, and he was talking about the fact that he was able to finesse the first Game Changer album. Yeah, it's funny because before, that's what I did. I did the same thing. I was able to put out songs and do shows, get booked around the world, all because of the first 2 albums. And then, of course, life happens. You do different things. Things get in the way. But it's funny that you asked me that question because in November, my new EP comes out called Mega Dope Maniac. So it's going to be, it's based off of a term that I always use. I decided to make an EP out of it. And then we got the 2 mixtapes coming out before the year is over, which is Red Catastrophe, which is all straight up 100% real hip hop. Me spitting venom over some of the best beats in hip hop. Even some of my own, but also some well-known instrumentals that most underground hip hop heads might know. And then we got the Purple Champagne mixtape coming out, which is going to be me singing over my favorite R&B instrumentals from Mary J. Blige to Trey Songz. I'm going to be singing over a lot of my favorite stuff, some stuff of my own, some remakes, some different things like that. And then top of the year, 2020, for my fans that know that the long-awaited Psychotic Chameleon album is coming out. It's a double album. Wow. So I'm actually giving it. Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
Double album.
Well, I'm making up for lost time. What Nas said, never on schedule, but always on time. So I really, for me, it's just, it's been so long and the fans have been rocking with me. My core base has been so dedicated to, to keeping up with everything I was doing and keeping abreast of the music and the people who I've been working with behind the scenes as well as being in front. So we coming strong now. It's like now that everything done got squared away and I'm back on my feet, it's like, okay, now we got some work to do. So that's what we're looking at right now.
Hey, yo, man, I'm glad you came through.
Thank you, man.
We going to keep up. We gonna sit down over some spaghetti like G-Rap.
Oh, no, yeah, man. Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Okay. Any last words?
Last words, rest in peace, Sean Price, my good buddy. That's why I said we didn't even get to half of those stories.
Yeah,
you know, so it's like
that's
it's so much to talk about.
We're not gonna do it all right now.
No, we don't do it. Yeah, exactly. So much of that, and then Black Moon has a new album coming out. Like these are guys, Smoother Hustler. These are guys who I ran the street with. So shout out to all of my heroes on every side of the genre fence. Shout out to my incredible fans that been rocking with me for so long and supporting me, and just support real music. I have a slogan now: support or shut up. Everybody complains about bring the real music back. When you got artists like me and Rusty Jux and Duo Live and a lot of other people putting out quality content, you have to. It's always been there. You just got to go and support it. Layla Hathaway has a dope album out. It's almost like there's no excuses, no complaints. So for people who love real hip hop or real R&B, real rock and roll, or if you like country music in its purest form, or any genre of music that you love, support it.
Yeah.
Don't make excuses about things not being on the radio and things like that, so that more artists like myself can continue to get this major acceptance. Because I pride myself in being a fierce independent with the major background. I mean, everybody can't say they work with Lionel Richie.
I know.
So you know what I'm saying? And from one of the worst hoods in Brooklyn. So it's a statement. It's a testament to that anything could be done. You put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. Do hard work and grind. And that's pretty much it outside of the IG, Planet 12 Law, Twitter, @Planet 12 Law, Facebook.com/Law Planet 12. So it's all Planet 12.
All right, let's go.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Peace.
Yo, what up? This is the LAW, a.k.a. the most talented kid in the music biz, and you're tuning in to AllHipHop.com. Law.